We're finally here, coming for you, Cazador. I'm so excited to go over this whole quest with you guys because it was the most anticipated event for me probably in this whole game. I was talking back in early access, almost fantasizing about being able to hunt down Cazador in Baldur's Gate and wrecking him for Astarion. And now that time has finally arrived. I'm going to do the normal spoiler warning for those of you who haven't seen this yet, but given how long it's taken for me to get this video completed, most of you have probably seen it by now. I will say that I did come about a rather unique outcome in my quest, though, one that I haven't seen many others talk about at least, so I don't know how common it actually is. Also, this is going to be long. So long that I'm likely going to have to break it into a part 1 and a part 2 because there's a lot to cover from the point you get to Rivington, and I don't want to rush through any of this, and I especially want plenty of time to talk about the climactic scene at the end. So let's get started. Now, I've already covered the scene with the fortune teller at the circus, and if you've seen some of my latest shorts, you know we already visited the clown as well. And if you haven't seen the shorts, then, well, you should go watch them because they're hysterical. But suffice it to say, Astarion does not like clowns.
Of course! What fun! I'm going to fucking kill you.
And really, who could blame him? I really don't care for clowns myself. But leaving the circus aside, one of the first scenes I encountered upon arriving in Rivington was a new dialogue when you talk to Astarion. Let me play it for you.
Wyrm's Crossing, the welcome mat of Baldur's Gate. This is it. I'm almost home. I won't lie. The thought hardly fills me with glee. Even with my newfound advantages, he's still an incredibly powerful vampire. But he's arrogant, too. If he does hear I'm back, he'll try to take me and expose himself in the process. Then I'll be able to strike. It's something of a gamble, true, but if I can win, if I can beat him, it would be worth any risk. So yes, I do worry about facing him. But if we can get his attention, finding the ritual's location will be much easier, and that could give me the edge I need.
So he mentions how he's almost home and seems a little weirded out by it. You know, I can't blame him. It must be pretty strange to be back after all that time. You can then ask him further if he's worried about Cazador finding out that he's back. His response is completely expected. He admits he's not really wild about the thought of running into Cazador, that even with his new powers, Cazador is still massively powerful. But he seems to have a bit more confidence, whether it's forced bravery or actual confidence, when he says Cazador is also too full of himself, that he'll probably try to take Astarion by force, and that's when we can strike. I do think that at the very least, Astarion has found some comfort in knowing that he won't have to face this fight alone. I mean, Tav and company are no slouches, and we've already taken down some pretty tough opponents. And what he doesn't know is that Tav's driver, me, has been waiting to carve Cazador from head to toe for quite some time now, so he's got every right to feel more confident. I didn't really love any of the responses here, though. They all seem kind of deprecating, like, "And how are you going to strike exactly?" and "You really think you can beat him?" None are things I would have actually chosen to say. I think an appropriate response would have been, "Damn straight, we're whooping him good." But the next best option was to say, "It sounds risky." He acknowledges that things could definitely go wrong in an encounter with Cazador, but is finding this newfound relief at the thought of actually being free of his old master, saying it's worth any risk. But using his head, he figures that if he can figure out where the location of the ritual will be, then it will give him the edge he needs to get the jump on Cazador, and I agree. because that makes total sense. He had already mentioned looking for his brothers and sisters once in Baldur's Gate back in Act 2 for me, so that seemed like a good place to start looking. Astarion says it's likely they'll be in a flop house looking for victims, so we'll keep an eye out for that on the way. Now, while I was exploring, I came across another quite interesting place. It had nothing to do with his siblings, but was a surprise nonetheless. So, behind Rivington, I found a Gur encampment. I was told to talk to their leader, Ulma, who recognized Astarion immediately. Let me play it for you.
So, the impossible spawn walks among us in the blazing sun. We have been looking for you. The last time your friend came to our camp, he stole our children, our future. When we sent Gandrel after you, we wanted to interrogate you, to discover how to save our children, and then destroy you. But things have changed. You have changed. Is it true you left your master? That you broke the spell that binds you to him?
Well, I mean, kind of. It's a long story, honestly.
Free. Not while his master still lives. But he has perhaps earned a second chance. We have tried to save our children once already, attacking Cazador's palace at first light. Even then, it was too well defended. But if his own spawn approached, someone he thought he could control, he would throw his doors open and welcome you in. And once inside, you could do what we could not. You could save the children you damned.
You don't know Cazador like I do. He's merciless. You want me to march into the lion's den and save your children? But I promise you, they're already dead. I spent 200 years bringing him victims. Each and every one was whisked away to be fed on that night.
But you never saw him feed yourself. He could keep prisoners for days before killing them. If our children are truly gone, then we ask for blood. I know you can understand that, Spawn.
I suppose. Yes. Yes. Revenge, I can do.
Thank you. From me and all my people. If you can do this, we will be in your debt. You have lived a life of violence and sin. You have stolen lives, broken families, and caused immeasurable grief. Doing this will not right those wrongs.
If you're trying to encourage me, you're failing abysmally.
But it will be a start. You may still be redeemed. Please go. Time is short, but we will see you again when it is done.
So it seems Astarion might not have been completely truthful with us about the encounter with the Gur in the Hag's Swamp. He said Cazador hired them to find him, but instead we find out that his own people sent him to capture and interrogate Astarion about where their children were. Now, it's also possible that Astarion didn't really know, that maybe he didn't know that particular guy, and maybe he just thought Cazador sent him, but either way, it's not what we thought it was, which is a lot to process, that Astarion had anything to do with stealing a bunch of children away, even if he was forced to by Cazador's will. I mean, I never really thought about the possibility of kids being involved. You think a bunch of adult, pretty faces, not so much very young ones. It's pretty messed up to think that he was forced to do such a thing. And you can't really hold it against him because what choice did he have, you know? Even Ulma is open to discussion, considering she seems to know things have changed, and even asks him if he's truly broken free from his master. Astarion comes off pretty I'm sheepish here. Like, well, kind of. I imagine this whole predicament would be insanely uncomfortable. He has no idea how Tav is going to take it, or whether or not Ulma is just gonna attack him on the spot. And can I say, all of these number 2 options are just ridiculous. First we had, if you want to throw him on that fire, I fully support that. And then we have, it was more dumb luck than any skill on his part. Like, this must be for all the Astarion haters to choose. But I'm pretty sure they all chose to stake him right off the bat like they always tell me. So all I'm left with is to be wounded by how horrible the choices are. It seems like Ulma is willing to give Astarion a second chance, though, given he's willing to help her get their missing children back. It's then that we get a rare glimpse into Astarion's kind of inner self. It's what makes me not hold a grudge against him here, because you can clearly tell that he is remorseful, that he knows exactly what Cazador is like, as he's suffered at his hands before. And the truth of it is, if children were stolen away by a vampire, how would they still be alive? Likely they were fed off of and tossed aside, right? So even though it sounds cold when he says, I promise you they're already dead, I completely agreed with him. It has been months at least by now. It seems incredibly optimistic to hope that they're still alive, but I'm not past helping them get the kids back if they're actually still around. If you ask how he can be so sure, he gets a little fussy, reminding you that he spent 200 years bringing him victims and that each one was taken away to be fed on that night. So the odds are not in the children's favor. Ulma says if the kids are not alive, that she demands blood for the lives taken from them, and that means killing Cazador, which I'm all too happy to do. The last choice is a bit hard. You can say, if Astarion won't help you, I will, which just seems rude, and we can't help you at all, which is also not helping to resolve anything. So I went with what felt like a mediary choice. I told Astarion he owed them revenge, something it seemed he should understand pretty well. He gets almost thoughtful in response, looking down for a moment as he considers your words. It doesn't take long before he agrees, with a satisfied look on his face, though. I also have to say, and I'm fully aware that it's a fangirl moment, but doesn't he look so freaking hot right here? This expression is killing me. The determination in his eyes is just, swoon. Okay, let me get back on track here. Ulma then kind of tears into Astarion at the end here, talking about how he's an awful person and lived a life of violence, caused horrible pain and grief. I'm not really sure why she feels the need to go off on him. She seemed to understand the concept of a spawn being bound to their master. Why does she seem to conveniently forget it then and guilt trip him about things he had no control over? Imagine what that's like, having to answer to crimes committed by you that you had no choice but to agree to. It's kind of messed up. Like, yeah, he took these children, but he couldn't say no to doing it. He's just as much a victim as the families that are torn apart here, and yet he has a fate worse than even the victims do, because he has to live with the guilt of doing something awful that he had no say in. And then he had to do it for 200 years. It's no wonder he isn't stark raving mad. And I mean that seriously, because I know a hell of a lot of people who go to therapists, are dealing with depression or some other mental disorder. Can you imagine having to deal with that level of mental chicanery for 200 years? Not just the abuse from Cazador, but essentially being forced to enact your own abuse by harming others. It's a miracle his psyche is still intact. I don't think many people could actually survive that level of hell. It would completely break most of them. So I guess it annoys me a little that after the entire conversation, Ulma feels the need to twist her knife in that wound. He responds with a more sarcastic version of what I would have said, like, well, if you're trying to encourage me and get me to actually help you, then you're doing a horrible job, lady. And if it had been me, I would have just said, you. I get it. I mean, the situation sucks, but it's all about perspective, and many people are just unwilling to even consider a situation from someone else's side. I can see both sides here, but at least in the end, she reiterates that he might still be redeemed. I guess it's probably hard to look past the hatred you've held for someone responsible for taking your kids, but the reality of not just this game, but of the world, is that things are not always as simple as they seem. So now we have a new quest to help save the Gur kids if we can, and if not, kill Cazador. Something I was already planning to do, so I'm down for this. Now I just have to find Astarion's so-called siblings so I can get an idea of where this ritual is going to be held. I eventually found them by heading up into the south span of Wyrm's Crossing, right across from the waypoint in Frego's Flophouse. It's funny because I didn't quite expect the complete disdain that Astarion has shown in the past and shows in this scene for his fellow spawns. I was constantly nagging him about how he shouldn't even consider doing the ritual because his siblings were just the same as him. But after meeting these two, I can kind of understand it. I mean, I can't make heads or tails of Dalria. She seems just somewhere in the middle. But Petrus? Holy crap, he is just, as dumb as a box of rocks. So, before I get too far ahead of myself, let's see how this scene goes so you can see what I mean.
We should go. I do not want to face the Master if we're late for his Black Mass.
Soon, sister. I only need one more mark.
We have enough for the Master. No more needed.
It's not for the Master, it's for me. I spent 100 years eating rats and dogs, but soon I'll be able to feast. I want someone there, ready for me. And once the Mass is done and our Lord grants us freedom, I can celebrate by drinking them dry.
Cazador promised you your freedom, and you believed him? Ha! You were never burdened with intelligence, Petras. But your load seems especially light these days.
Astarion! It cannot be.
Oh, that's no way to welcome back a brother, doll. Didn't you miss me?
Why would you come back? You got out. You were free.
Isn't it obvious, sister? He wants to ascend with the rest of us. He heard about the ritual and the power our master will grant us, so he came back with his tail between his legs, hoping all would be forgiven.
You always were an idiot, Petras. Where is he hiding? Tell me!
Brother! Please!
Fine. You owe your wretched life to my friend. Now tell me what I need to know.
The Master is preparing the Black Mass. Beneath his palace, there's a defiled chapel. It was hidden there the entire time. Hidden from us all. Do you really think you can stop him?
I'm the only one who can. The sun can't harm me. Cazador can't compel me. I don't need to fear him anymore. Now go, before I change my mind about roasting you, brother.
This isn't over, Astarion.
Poor fools. They actually think Cazador will save them. You sound surprised. I am capable of doing the right thing from time to time. They're no threat to us. And they have no choice but to do Cazador's bidding. I pity them. Worst of all, they don't know their fate's already set. They're doomed. The only question is whether their lives will be sacrificed to a monster like Cazador, or serve a greater purpose. 7 sigils on 7 spawn. And Cazador has the other 6. We have to face him and take that power for ourselves. Trust me, I'd rather slaughter someone else's family, but if that's what it takes. And it's not like their sweet innocence. They brought Cazador just as many victims as I did. You're not getting sentimental, are you? I thought you were with me on this. Then you'll help me in this. Nothing would make me happier. And now we know he's skulking beneath his palace. We can take the hunt to Cazador. All right, let's go. This place stinks of rat blood and despair.
Do you see what I'm talking about with Petrus? Thinking that Cazador is actually going to free him with ritual? He's kind of stupid. Astarion and I are on exactly the same page here. Like, you actually believed him? You freaking nitwit. I absolutely adore the choice of words here, though. You were never burdened with intelligence, but your load seems especially light these days. Ooh, what a burn. I just love the way Neil delivers the lines here. It's so condescending. Honestly, this whole exchange is pretty great, even when he asks Dahlia if she's missed him. Dahl is wondering why the heck Astarion came back if he was free. She seems confused with maybe a touch of concern, or maybe it's jealousy. I can't quite tell since the dynamic between these siblings feels a bit heated. I'm not sure if she actually cares about him, or if she's just another derp like Petrus. When given the option, I just kept quiet. I kind of felt like this was Astarion's show, and I'd let him decide how he wanted to deal with them. And it's not long before Petrus is being stupid again, talking about how Astarion must have only come back because he wants to ascend with the rest of them, which is just laughable. How could these spawns have lived the same life as Astarion and be so gullible? Once again, Astarion is working 100% in sync with me when he says Petrus was always an idiot, but I didn't quite expect what happened next. He just grabs him by the neck and drags him into the sunlight by the window. Dahl doesn't seem to like it much and screams out, "No!" It makes me wonder if they have a thing for each other. Maybe they're just very close. How could anyone fall for such a dummy, though? Oh. I'm left to ponder these things as Petrus's skin scorches in the rays of the sun, and I can't help but love this side of Astarion. I know, I shouldn't, because I'm trying to help him avoid becoming some horrible bad guy, but there's something attractive about the control he takes over the situation. There's a confidence there that's appealing, and I can't deny that I kind of like the chaos of it. Just because I'm trying to keep him from going full power-hungry mode doesn't mean we can't still have some fun now and then, right? I'm definitely going to have to play an evil game and just completely indulge in all of the control, power, cruelty, and chaos. But for this game, at least, it shows I still like him for the same reasons I did in the first act, even all the way in Act 3. But besides that, I still also like that he's not scared, because in truth, he has every right to be scared given the situation, and he's just handling it really well, I think. Now that I've gotten that little rant out of the way, eventually you get the choice to do a couple of things. In my first game, I was trying to keep him from being too cruel, so I tried to persuade him to stop. I had no idea if he would just outright kill this guy or what, so I figured it best to at least try to chill him out. And when you pass the check, he'll say that Petrus owes his wretched life to Tav. But my intrusion wasn't really necessary because he'll actually stop on his own if you don't interfere and choose to say nothing.
Tell me what I need to know, or I swear you'll burn.
The Master is preparing the Black Mass beneath his palace. There's a defiled chapel. It was hidden there the entire time, hidden from us all.
I'm going to stop Cazador.
What the hell's happened to you, Astarion? What are you?
I'm more than what I was. And I'm not afraid of anything anymore. The sun can't harm me. Cazador can't compel me. I'm the only person who can stop him.
What's even cooler is that you get a slightly different dialogue where Astarion confidently claims he's going to stop Cazador, that he's not afraid of anything anymore, which just feels pretty great and empowering for him. But probably my favorite choice, just for flavor, is to just say, talk or burn, your choice. Yeah, that's my chaotic neutral coming out.
You heard them. Tell me what I need to know. Now!
Depending on how you go about it, the scene will differ slightly, but the important part is that Dalria will tell you that Cazador plans to hold the Black Mass beneath his palace in a hidden underground chapel. And Astarion will vow to stop Cazador. Once the brother and sister leave, you have a few choices of what to say, but I think picking "I'm glad you spared them" comes out the best. His response is just great, and it feels especially good if you don't intervene and try to get him to stop, since it shows he's capable of doing the right thing on his own, even though technically he could have his own motivations at heart here, i.e. saving them for the ritual later. Still, it's also not entirely wrong either, because there are lots of times where Astarion does approve when you do something good, like when you helped the Myconids or Karlach, for instance. But the next set of choices are most compelling, and there are so many options. Now, I still need to do some testing on this, but I'm pretty sure this is one of many choices that plays a big role in what happens during the quest later on. For the sake of what I was trying to accomplish in my game, I didn't want him to take part in the ritual. I wanted him to become happier, be a little less power hungry, but still fun, as I just mentioned. So for my game, I picked those 6 spawn are your brothers and sisters. Are you ready to sacrifice them? He still tries to make excuses, trying to justify that, well, it's okay to do it just because they were as bad as he was in terms of bringing victims to Cazador. But he's also avoiding the fact that they are literally the same as him, less some intelligence, or so it would seem. But in the end, he asks if I'm getting sentimental, that he thought I was with him on the idea of the ritual, which, to be fair, I never really was. I literally took every chance to tell him he shouldn't do it, but still tried to support him by not being too crappy about it. So I just replied with what felt natural, that I just wanted him to be happy. It seems right, you know? To be the little angel on his shoulder trying to steer him in the right direction, but ultimately letting him control his own fate. He replies, in not exactly the way I'd hoped, saying, well, good, you're going to help me with this then. I mean, still, he's not wrong. I was always going to help him. I'm just not sure at this point how it's actually going to go down. I really wanted to see some of his other responses, though, since there were so many good options here. Like, I really wanted to pick the one that said, for ourselves, for yourself, you mean, and this is what he had to say to that.
Well, yes, technically, only I will ascend and gain the ritual's power. But we're a team. If I become all-powerful, then we become all-powerful. We are a team, aren't we? You are still with me?
I actually really liked his response here. It's kind of cute, too, how he's like, we're a team, and if I become all-powerful, then we become all-powerful. He says it in a rather cheeky way, but it really brings me back when he asks if I'm still with him. Another really funny option is this next one, to say, sometimes you scare me more than the Elder Brain does.
Well, thank you, darling. But there's nothing to be afraid of. We're a team, after all.
The way he said, why thank you, darling, just cracked me up. And then he goes back into the team dynamic thing, basically echoing what he said in the last option. So that's about it for Astarion's quest in this area of the game. You don't actually get to go to Cazador's palace until you enter the lower city of Baldur's Gate. And while I could have tried to squeeze it all into a single video, for one, it would be way too long, and for two, I think I'd be pretty unhappy not giving the proper attention to one of the best scenes in the entire game. And even splitting this up into 2 videos, the next one is still probably going to be pretty long. Unless I clip out commentary on some of the other scenes, but I guess we'll see how that comes together. For those curious how I've played my romance with Astarion so far, just check out my Astarion romance playlist. I'll link it up here for easy access, and in the meantime, I'll get to working on the next video. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing, as there is going to be a huge slew of new BG3 content coming out over the next few months, possibly years. I mean, there's a lot. Thanks to my Patreons for the support, and if you'd like to help support the channel too, and get access to the private Discord and a whole other chunk of content on Patreon, then head over and make a pledge. I'll see you guys later.